There are two configurations that you have to keep in mind for the dynamic DNS, the DHCP configuration and the DNS configuration. By default, DHCP is configured to provide dynamic updates to clients that support this feature. Clients running older operating systems, such as Windows NT4, cannot update their records on their own, like we said before. They require the assistance of the DHCP server to act as a register for the records in DNS. On the other hand, when DHCP is in place and ready to support dynamic updates, you also need a DNS server hosting zones that support the dynamic updates. Dynamic updates are configured at the DNS zone level, and this can be done during the creation process of the zone. If you choose not to support dynamic updates when you create the zone, or you change from the standard to an ADDS integrated zone, you can modify the configuration either through the graphical interface or from the command line using the DNS CMD. To find domain controllers in domain or forest, a client queries the DNS for the server record and the A DNS resource record of that DC. The resource record provides the client with the names and IP addresses of the DCs. In this context, the SRB and the A record resources are referred to as an allocator DNS resource record. All clients and member servers in a domain environment needs to point to an internal DNS server that hosts the zone records for the domain. The DNS console is the main graphical tool used for configuration of the DNS. It provides access to all of the DNS zones that are available on a server along with the configuration settings for the DNS role. The DNS console displays a number of areas for you to work with on each DNS server in your environment. Another version of the DNS console is called the DNS Manager, which is available through the administrative tools, or you can add it to the Microsoft Management Console shell. DNS Manager allows you to add DNS servers so that you can view all of your DNS server in the same interface. Depending on the settings you want to put into place, you can configure the DNS in the following levels. DNS server level, which is the first one, with settings at these levels apply to all of the DNS server role and impact all of the zones hosted on that server. The DNS zone level, which is setting at this level apply to a specific DNS zone and affect all of the record included only in that specific zone. And finally, the DNS record level, which affect only the single record that you select. Let's talk first about the DNS server level. At the DNS server level, you make configuration changes that are server specific along with performing maintenance tasks for a specific server. The following are configurations and maintenance tasks that you can perform on the DNS server level. You can configure a DNS server, you can create the default application or directory partition that we talked before, you can create a zone, set the aging scavenging for all the zones, scavenge stale resources record, update server data file, clear the cache of the server, and launch the amazing tool that we all love but at the same time hate, NS lookup. In addition to this task, you can also modify the DNS server properties by accessing the DNS server properties dialog box through the DNS console. When you open the property window, you're going to find different tabs that group different settings for the DNS server. You're going to find the interfaces, forwarders, advanced settings, root hints, debug logging, event logging, monitoring, and security. I'm not going to really go through a detail explaining each one of these because actually you can find it on page 226 of the book. Then we have the DNS Oops, sorry about that. Then we have the DNS zone level. In the DNS zone level is where all of the DNS zones exist. From here, you can perform the following activities that affect a specific zone: creating and delegating DNS zones, creating new DNS records, creating new DNS domains and delegations, reloading the DNS zones, and setting the DNS record level. Also, you have the Zone Properties dialog box, which contains different tabs that you can see and you can use to configure and modify the DNS zones. These tabs are the General, Start of Authority, the Name Servers, Wins, when we have those all operating systems that still use the net biomes names, the zones transfer, and the security. Once again, I'm not going to go into detail of the tabs because you can find it on page 227 of the book as well. And finally, we have the DNS record level. In this level, you can perform the following activities directly related to a specific record. You can modify and delete records. You can define the security settings on a DNS record. You can manage a scavenging setting for a record, and you can set record times to leave. Round robin is a local balancing mechanism used by DNS server to share and distribute network resources load. You can use it to rotate all of the resource records types contained in a query answer if multiple resource records are found. By default, DNS uses round robin to rotate the order of resource record data returned in a query answers where multiple resource records of the same type exist for a query DNS domain name. This feature provides a simple method for load balancing client use of a web server and other frequently query multi-home computers. If round robin is disabled for a DNS server, the other server and the order of the response for these queries is based on the static ordering of the resource records in the answer list as they are stored in the zone, either its zone file or the Active Directory. This works by creating host records with the same host name but that point to different IP addresses. Windows Server 2008 DNS servers are configured to support round robin DNS by default. If you don't want to make this feature available, you can remove the functionality by modifying the advanced properties for the DNS server. DNS-CMD also can be used to disable or enable round robin DNS along with other DNS features. Traditionally, forwarding is set up so that all non-matching queries are sent to one or more servers. This is what we call the standard forwarding. Another form of forwarding is what we have been calling the conditional forwarding, or forwarding based on a specific domain name. In Windows Server 2008, the conditional forwarders are created in their own locations under the server in the DNS console. You're going to be doing this in activity 612 of the book. And finally, before we enter in the troubleshooting area of DNS, we are going to talk a little bit about the DNS CMD console. As we have learned so far in this lesson, DNS CMD is an excellent command line tool for performing configuration and maintenance tasks on the DNS server. It performs most of the tasks available through the graphical interface, such as creating new zones, creating DNS records, and updating zones files. We can use DNS CMD to perform the following tasks: create and delete DNS zones, add and delete, view information about DNS zones and records, and change the zones types.